Bill O'Reilly quote when he's getting all pissed off. He's like, "F it, we'll do it live."
That's great. We're starting off the live stream talking about Bill O'Reilly. We're gonna pull in our base.
He is
really
Papa
fast.
Bear. He is Papa Bear.
Now, I got a question about Bill O'Reilly. Is two things. So I got to get used to the layout of this camera.
Yeah,
two things. One, why did he always have porn stars on his show? I mean, don't get me wrong. I have also done that.
You got to get the kiddies what they like.
but that always really confused me, being on Fox News and always having porn stars. It was very odd. The other thing is, what's up with all the killing presidents books? I mean, obviously, I'm not going to read them because I don't care. But like, he's got killing Kennedy, killing Lincoln, killing, I don't know who else he has. There's like 4 of them. I saw them all at Costco yesterday in a little gift set, and I was like, why is he trying to kill all these ex-presidents? It seems a little ridiculous.
Let's break it down for you. I'm going to say he's a marketing genius. Porn stars for the conservatives. You get morbid curiosity, plus you get the guys that want to see porn stars, but they don't want their wives to know they're looking at porn stars. Like,
no, I'm watching the
news. It's Mia Khalifa. And the wife looks over. I'm like, who? And he's like, I don't know. She's a actress.
she's a live streamer.
She live streams, honey. I've seen her work. She's
games.
Yeah. And then with the killing stuff, that just gets people's attention. Like, oh, killing Lincoln, so that just gets attention. So that's his genre. So he knows how to play his base. His base is conservative white people.
Like it's literally just shock. That's kind of what I assumed, but neither here nor there.
It's kind of like what a lot of streamers and podcasters and people that are trying to be commentary anymore. Like you look at Candace Owens and all that. They try to do that shock factor to get your attention. They'll have content that's actually good. But that shock factor is that first thing that pulls you in, and you're like, "Whoa, why is this black person a conservative, or why is this gay person a conservative?" That's that shock thing. It's that weird out of place thing, and then it pulls you in to get more and more. So it's clever marketing, man.
Yeah, it really is. Marketing. I've obviously gained an affinity for marketing in like my last 3 years of life, given the fact the last 3 years of my life I was in marketing. So I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're here to talk about. What we are here to talk about is on last Friday, or 2 days ago on Friday, Kyle Rittenhouse was found not guilty on all 5 charges that were brought up against him. And there has been a, polarizing reaction to it. You see 2 different narratives. You see the hero narrative, and you see a murderer just got away with murder narrative. I don't have to ask you, but I'm going to ask you, which side do you find yourself on? Or do you find yourself on neither side? And go ahead.
Yeah, that's a good question. So at first, to me, it was just a case that honestly I didn't care about. I kind of heard about it. It sounded like some kid that probably shouldn't have been there. This is my original not really knowing much about the case. Some kid that probably shouldn't have been there got confronted, and this was my understanding. Got confronted. Something went down. 2 people ended up dead. Sounded bad during riots, right? So there's there's a lot of crap going on. And then, I kind of forgot about it since the original time it happened. I'm like, all right, well, play stupid games, stupid prizes happen. Kind of my attitude. Like, crap's going to happen at riots where there's little to no control and all that. So I really didn't care. It really didn't matter to me. Didn't sound like a race issue to me at first, because it was, from what I understood, it was all white people. So I'm like, okay, well, it doesn't really sound race related. It sounds like just people doing stupid stuff getting wrapped up. And then, I didn't follow the case too much. I would mainly see the little clips that everyone saw. And depending on your social media leaning, where social media saw you, they would show you curated lists that either agitate you to think what you want to think or support what you think already. That's what social media does. So for me, it was kind of a mix, because I try to deliberately confuse my algorithm at places like TikTok and Facebook, just so I can get a mix of that. Like I'll like left stuff, I'll like right stuff. And then when I saw that, a lot of the information for the case, it didn't seem like much of a case to me. It sounded pretty straightforward defense. So for me, the kid was doing self-defense. I personally think he doesn't be so I'm I feel like I'm in the middle. To me, it's pretty clear it was self-defense. I don't think he should have been there. That's kind of beside the point once you're there. And the people he shot were pretty messed up people. So, like, to me, it's like it was self-defense, and the guys sounded like pretty cruddy. Now, should they have died?
And I feel
probably not.
I feel that mentioning the people that he killed were shitty doesn't help the conversation at all.
Yeah, I agree.
It really doesn't, because he was not there to act as a judge, jury, and executioner. I mean, that was kind of what the prosecution was trying to prove, but
yeah,
it turned out to not be the case. So what they did, it really does muddy the waters. It just really gives conservatives a moral high ground to stand on and be like, yeah, he got rid of, the worst. And I'm not saying that these were good people by any means. They were fucking trash. Like, let's call them what they are. They were trash. But it doesn't matter. What matters is what led up to the shots.
Yes. The same thing I think with when it comes to George Floyd, right? Like, everyone tried to bring up his past. To me, that matters nothing. Like, you could be the best, you could be the freaking Pope, or whatever you want to say, the most noble person in. You get put in a crappy situation, something bad happens to you. It doesn't matter what your past was. Everyone should be treated like a human. So I agree with you. I think bringing up the past is, however, when you're making the case of their intention at the moment of confrontation, the past does kind of put it in context. So
yes,
it's kind of like it's supporting evidence. It's not the evidence of whether they deserve to live or die. So, like, bringing up their past, it just shows, and Tucker Carlson had a vicious thing to say. I know Tucker Carlson's very polarizing too, but his thing with that one guy that was accused of, he's been convicted of, I think, rape of children and stuff like that. He's like, he died the way he lived, trying to touch little boys or something. I was like,
say what you will. That's a dog whistle. That's just straight up funny.
It's funny, but it's a dog whistle because for conservatives, they hear it and it validates. For liberals, it's like, oh, Tucker Carlson's just the worst thing ever for saying that type of thing.
Making jokes about a dead person.
Yeah.
So it really is. It either affirms your belief that conservatives are huge pieces of shit, or it confirms your belief that they acted, or that Kyle acted 100% rightly. Which you don't just get to go and kill child rapists.
No, you don't. I mean, is it necessarily? just kidding. I can't get it. But what the thing is, it's like I doubt that he could, like, if you want to go back in time and like relive out that whole evening, I bet you he would play it differently. Like, I think he was just in a crappy situation, whether he put himself in there or not. It's kind of whatever it is. But yeah, it's like when you have that. It's a tough situation to like totally be able to judge clearly, because we weren't there, but we can only go by what the situation was. I feel like, looking back at how much muzzle control, and I mean, being the military background and all that, I admire his ability to only shoot 3 people to disarm one of them. Like, I'm kind of envious of the control he had, because I can tell you, if there was a crowd of people chasing me, there would be innocent people shot, I would have just unloaded. Because I remember combat shooting in the Marine Corps. I would have anxiety when I'm just shooting paper targets, when I'm supposed to drop to a knee, 2 in the chest, 1 in the head, stand up, 2 in the chest, target on both right, check the surrounding and all that. Yeah. Bullets were flying all over the place when you're not supposed to be firing. People were firing accidentally. And these are Marines. Like, we're supposed to be trained to do this. So the idea that kid would be able to go in, I still admire the ability, how much control he had in this situation. But I bet you he wishes he didn't have to kill anybody, because that's freaking traumatic. No matter who you are, no matter what type of person you shot, it's still traumatic to be in that situation. I mean, watching him, like, I saw, I didn't watch the whole case, but I saw clips of it. Watching him relive that situation got me emotional. Like, just seeing, like, he was just a kid. He's 17 years old. Like, being in that situation as 36, I'd be like,
I find myself so confused about the whole kid argument. Because I remember when I'm digging back into the annals of history, and I'm not trying to pull whataboutisms.
Yeah.
But I remember during the Trayvon Martin case, I remember people on the right just being like so upset that he was referred to as a kid. And then I'm like, Well,
interesting. That's a good point.
It's super interesting because
Yeah.
literally the exact same thing. Now I think that somebody's trying to pull us off of YouTube because I've gotten a phone call from the same 1-800 number in the last 5 minutes twice. That's a little odd. Give me 1 second. I'm
Yeah, no
kind
problem.
of blasting this out. Vamp for a second.
Yeah. Stand by.
Oh no, you're supposed to vamp.
What's that mean?
Just say things and keep the conversation going.
Going back to Trayvon Martin, because I actually think that's a really good point. I think that gets into the point of cognitive dissonance that we have when we're on our side of talking. Like, it's really easy for us to say, look at the past and gauge. Like, okay, for example, like you brought up, like, oh, Trayvon Martin was just a kid. Yeah, he sure was a kid. He was a punk kid in the wrong place at the wrong time, and probably didn't deserve to live. It's kind of harder because they didn't have any video of that whole interaction, and then if using the same argument, like, oh, he's just a kid for that, it's always funny politically to me. Like, you give it about 6 months, and the roles always reverse. Like, either the left will say, this is a valid argument, and then 6 months they'll say it's not, or the same thing for the Republicans. They'll be like, this is what's important, and then 6 months later they go exact opposite of what they just said. And it happens politically. It happens in elections all the time. I just sit back and just laugh at it because it's funny to me because it's playing both sides, and they're so good at it now. Like, and people just need, like, the box that they watch needs to tell them what to get upset at. And that's what they do. They like replace whatever's in that box to get angry at. For example, this case is going to impact absolutely no one at all, but we're getting upset about it because why? I still don't understand why we're upset about it. If anything, the case just shows that, hey, when law enforcement and the government fails, we really don't do a good job either of knowing what's right to do and what's not right to do.
And I'm glad that you bring that up, because that is so. In the last 48 hours, I've been on Twitter more than normal because I'm a glutton for punishment. And yeah. I really, even though I will vehemently disagree with people who have this stance, I do find their stance interesting, of thinking that he is a murderer who does deserve to go to jail. I find it interesting, and I literally posted this because I didn't think that you were going to show up, and I just kind of posted it on Facebook as a throwaway post. There was an article that was released by Matt Taibbi, fantastic independent journalist, very left-leaning, but the name of this article is "The Rittenhouse Verdict is Only Shocking If You Followed the Last Year of Terrible Reporting." Now, like I said, it's an article by Matt Taibbi and Jared Moore. I should mention it's both of them. It's not just Matt Taibbi. That really go in and like discuss over an article. It takes about 12 minutes to read. It actually has a video version that you can listen to, that's narrated by a very articulate fella, or very soothing voiced fella. That's worth listening or reading to, and it really talks about how the people that are, I mean, what I got from it was that the people that are really outraged about the verdict are few and far between when they're actually educated on the facts of the case. And so what I posted with that article was like, I'm not mad at the people who think that Kyle Rittenhouse should go to jail for the rest of his life, that are listening to the news. I'm not mad at them, because they're literally just, repeating what they have heard and repeating what they think should, it should be the truth, because it's coming from the news. Like, I mean, it took me, I probably was a little bit earlier than most people, but probably, I had an independent news source that I started favoring above the mainstream media years ago. He ended up becoming mainstream media light, which was a real bummer for me, but it led me to find other independent media sources that really remove the veil of the BS that we're constantly shoved with. And that is what I find the most revealing about the whole thing. Now, the reason that I wanted to bring up that article the Rittenhouse verdict is only shocking. You follow the last year of terrible reporting. Is there was an article by the New York Post by Miranda Devine, and it is titled 10 Heinous Lies About Kyle Rittenhouse Debunked. And I kind of want to go down this list with you. So I'm actually going to pose all of these as questions to you. Now, like you said, you didn't follow it 100%, and I want you to tell me what you think, and then I'm going to tell you what actually happened. So,
sure.
The very first thing, he killed 2 black BLM protesters.
Yeah, so I knew that. At the very beginning, I remember watching the video and I didn't see a black person. And plus, at these BLM riots, most of the people doing all the damage that he was engaged with were white. So I knew from watching the first report that there were no black BLM supporters that he killed. It was white people. I knew that because I saw the actual clip of the video and I'm like, oh, it's pretty clear. He killed white people. So that wasn't a problem with me. But then again, I'm not listening to mainstream media a lot. So that was never anything that got. I don't watch CNN, so I wasn't tainted with that type of information.
A funny fact is after the verdict was delivered, I believe it was The Intercept, the news organization that Glenn Greenwald created and then was basically kicked out of, had posted that he was found not guilty of murdering 3 black BLM protesters.
To me, that breeds up a pretty big slander lawsuit case that if I was Kyle Rittenhouse, I'd be getting my lawyers all chomped up to do, because that is just straight lying. That's not even like, oops, I got it mistake. That's a straight lie. If you're reporting on a freaking case, that is just to lie, and that's just to agitate, which is just evidence of media in general. Like that's all they want to do right now is just agitate. They don't want to report on stuff like that. So it's just more frustration. And I think that's what's also breeding into this case, is the frustration a lot of on the right have with media. And I think that's also kind of what's contributing to it. So that's probably where my opinion is going to be more. I'm a little bit more anti-establishment media because I am more on the right and I started shifting more to the right after the last 2 years. So my opinion is probably going to be a little bit skewed towards right-ish thinking because I don't trust the media, the mainstream media anyways. So
yeah, it's just it's super disheartening to see that happen. We got Robert Marshall in the chat, says Ira brings up a good point about how people only pay attention to what their boxes tell people to be mad at. Now that is so true. Like everything is driven by outrage. People even want there to be outrage about content that they're creating. I mean, we even made a joke about creating outrage about this live stream before we went live. Like that's how ingrained it is in us, in the news, in media as a whole. Like people want to get outraged because outrage drives action, whether that's engagement, whether that's, you're able to really point at the terrible things in your city and go ahead and tear it down even more. Let me start getting on some even weirder tracks, but
what got me is I was when I was in the Marine Corps, I was doing I started my master's program, and I did one of my first big classes was a marketing class, and it went a lot into the 2008 election with Barack Obama and how they used how they did really good marketing thing. But one thing that struck me so interesting is like politics. If you're a politician, all you are is a marketer, because you find the issues that get people motivated to act. So if you're selling a product, you have to either inspire someone to want to get up and order your product, or get someone scared enough to say, oh, I need that to protect my kids. Like, oh, you realize you're not cleaning all the germs on your door handles. You need to buy my special cleaner product. That stuff motivates you because out of fear or out of maybe pride or anything like that. But fear is one of the best motivators.
Can I take us on a quick aside?
Sure.
Hold on to that thought.
Okay.
But your whole talk right there got me thinking about the super cut of Brought to You by Pfizer that was put out by somebody a few weeks ago on YouTube. And it literally is all these news organizations that are taking a break and saying, all of this brought to you by Pfizer. and you're talking about like fear is a huge motivator, and it's like, yeah, it is a huge motivator. So what are you going to do when the world turns upside down and the time comes to get a shot? And I'll be 100% honest. I've never like come out and said that I got vaccinated, but I did get vaccinated. We're going to have a COVID episode about my experience with COVID in the future.
Yeah.
I did get vaccinated, and I did get Pfizer. You know why? Because I had heard the name before. So if that's not evidence of unhealthy tampering with the American people, I'm not 100% sure what is.
We can do the COVID episode later, because the longer COVID goes and the longer more information comes out, the sicker I feel about the whole thing. Like, you know what, the more tricked I feel about the whole thing, because it's not like I'm big in like, hey, when there's a time of uncertainty, like we're going to go back and we're going to have lessons learned, but and we'll get into this on another episode, but when we look back at what happened with COVID, it's not just getting things wrong. It's we were misled in a lot of ways, in fundamental ways, and it's not just mistakes. These were active levels of misleading from leadership, from and whatever have you, and the controlled narrative, and that's what breeds into us where we are now, where we don't trust the media, we don't trust things, because whether you feel it, whether you think it, or whether you're just have this uneasy feeling, you kind of over time, you kind of feel, whether you follow it or not, you kind of feel when you're being misled. You kind of feel like when there's just too much BS out there, even if you're not tracking it enough, where you get this uncomfortable feeling. And that's what I think a lot of people have. And that's what it's boiled over. And I think in this case is we're just getting so much information from people we just don't trust. And it's really starting to be more and more apparent.
Yeah, and I agree wholeheartedly. So I'm actually going to go ahead and share my screen real fast, because I kind of want to go through Twitter and then look right back over here to this article. Go ahead and hide my notifications. Where is, that's my Facebook. There we go. There's Twitter. So we're going down. So I already talked about Glenn Greenwald. He put out an actually really well thought out video about the whole verdict, why it came the way that it did, and really kind of broke it down, and hopefully in a way that more people are going to hear and listen to, because he used to be such a voice for the left. I mean, I don't know if you know Glenn Greenwald's background, but Glenn Greenwald is the reason that we know all about Project Prism that Snowden brought to light, and was hated by the right, because so many people on the right feel that, when I say right, I mean right institutionally right, like that are very part of the GOP and a part of the even the right media. He was
take a quick side note to that.
Yeah,
like because this is something I've been thinking about a lot. So I've been noticing a lot where the left and people on the left, what I call the the noble liberals, because I kind of consider myself a little bit more on the classical liberal side. They for a long time have been shouting at the fear of corporations and big huge business and all that, and the right's been pissing on them, saying, "Oh, get off! Corporations are good for America and all that." As being someone more that was a little bit more defensive of corporations, to all my liberal friends and everyone else that was doing this and warning me before, I'm sorry if I was wrong. And you guys were right about being scared of corporations, because if anything that the last year and a half has taught us is that our government and our politicians aren't being running by us, the people, and aren't being running by politicians. They're being running by these faceless corporations that we don't get to see that organization. So that's just me kind of thinking about that. Like the liberals were right. We're right. And now what's funny is the people that are technically on that side are now backing the corporations, because in that new anger box that they're told to be angry at, they're angry at something else, not corporations. So yeah. Thanks for warning us. But now it's really nice if we could both get aligned and figure out how we fix this problem together, instead of being angry at each other for silly stuff like Kyle Rittenhouse, which is not going to affect our life at all. But the corporations that are running everything are. So be nice if we could get together and figure that out together.
Yeah.
I'm ready to come to the table if anyone else is. Like, I really want to figure a problem solution.
But I kind of wanted to go down this because there's a lot of information that comes up in here. One that I'm specifically looking for. The one time that I want to use Twitter as a resource, and it's not really helping me, so I'm just gonna go ahead and remove that. The thing that I'm seeing the most is his mommy drove him across state lines with a weapon to gun down people that he disagreed with. What are your thoughts on that statement?
Yeah, so it kind of goes to me. It's, it's trying to find out why a person was in a situation. It's kind of like blaming the girl for getting raped because she's wearing a short skirt. He was in the situation. Probably shouldn't have been there, to be honest. He shouldn't have been. He's 17. He has a gun. Besides all that, maybe there was stuff I did as a 17-year-old that I probably shouldn't have done, and it could have been a whole lot more south. And then the fact that I was in the situation kind of got me in trouble. But if it really went south, would I have been in trouble? Dealing with the situation that I put myself in, but then I was technically shouldn't have been in. And I know I'm probably going to get hate for comparing Kyle Rittenhouse to a rape victim, but whatever, cancel me. But the truth is yeah, I'll agree. As an adult, that looking back in hindsight, that 17-year-old acted like a 17-year-old. He shouldn't have been in that situation. Were his intentions good? It's hard to tell because I wasn't in his head. But from what I saw from the interviews and the reporting, the fact that he was there trying to defend property, my question is where were the police that were supposed to defend this property? I get the fact that he probably should have been there, but neither should have the rioters that were trying to set a gas station on fire.
That's the key piece right there. Is he shouldn't have been there, and neither should anybody else.
Yeah,
they were given plenty of time to do their protest. Curfew was enacted, and the police were not enforcing it. They weren't.
Rioting's not protesting. Protesting is good and important, and we need to have protesters protest because honestly, how are we going to find out about problems in other communities that we're not a part of unless they tell us? Like BLM, the act of talking and making it known, like that's a good thing. But violence is not doing that. Violence is terrorism.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. It really is. And when it comes down to it, he shouldn't have been there. They shouldn't have been there. Now, the whole cross state lines thing was something that I found really interesting because I kind of look at these a little differently because we both come from a very small community in southern Arizona. 20 miles is not a big deal in those types of situations. It's not a big deal when you're even in like a metro area. So I live 20 miles away from Denver. And if things were now granted, I don't love the city of Denver, so I probably wouldn't be as quote unquote gung ho, probably the worst possible term to use right there. But I wouldn't be keen to go and protect Denver. But I think about if it was, Benson from where we grew up was like what, 10 miles?
10 miles, so yeah, something like 10 miles.
Half of that.
Yeah.
So it was 20 miles from Illinois to Wisconsin to a place that he worked. He worked earlier that day, was not driven by his mother. He worked that day as a lifeguard. He then went to go clean up graffiti, and then he was there. So that's the fact. Like his mommy didn't take him anywhere. So everybody, I've seen that piece used 1,000 times.
Well, I mean, anyone that hasn't been on the East Coast or Midwest and stuff like that, and maybe they're more in California and stuff like that, they don't get the idea that a lot of the times people live in one state and work in the other just because they commute. So like I can see how that can get kind of confusing. They get that and they're like, okay, well, why did he have a gun in another state that he's not there? Well, it's really hard to kind of like, I don't know, to always remember that and figure that out. Like to be able to know, okay, well, state lines, it doesn't really matter as much when you live like 20 miles from the state line. You're not thinking, oh, wait, I'm going over state into another state. No, you feel like that's part of your community. State lines, and And like borders are all like psychological anyways. Like
we were so close to Mexico. Mexico was basically our community back then.
Yeah. I mean, like you drive down to Mexico and there's not much difference. Example from Naco, Mexico and Naco or in the Arizona, it looks like the same place. Like it's same, and that's two different countries. There might be a border wall in the middle, but it's very similar. Same thing with different states. Like you're working and you're living in that. So to me, like that argument doesn't really hold up for me. I guess I get why if that was the headline, you would think it's like, what's he doing? But if you don't know anything about geography and how people travel, or if you're not paying attention to details, I could see how that could catch you up. And that's why media people do that. They do misleading headlines. It makes you click, gets you angry, all that stuff. And it kind of goes back to the marketing aspect of it.
Yeah, and in the chat, the cameraman brings up what I got on the screen is he worked in Kenosha. His father lives in Kenosha. His aunt and uncle live there. He's connected to the community in a lot of different ways. Like he works at a community swimming pool. Like his job is a part of the community, literally.
Hearing stuff like he was doing stuff like cleaning graffiti, like it's really hard to think he's completely bad, but it's a bad thing.
The cameraman coming in again and just doing our job for us. Also saying the crossing state lines isn't illegal. The weapon was already in Kenosha at his cousin's house, whom was the physical owner of the weapon at the time, which is all true. The gun was never in Illinois. The gun was always in Wisconsin.
Well, and then if that was
cousin,
if that was
planning to gift it to him on his 18th.
Yeah, don't you think the prosecutor would have brought that up? Like if that was actually an illegal thing, like he would have been charged with that. Because when you're facing any type of charges, they throw the book at everything they can and see what
it was a charge that was brought up against him. It was the 6th charge, I believe, and it was dismissed based off of the Wisconsin state law. Give me 1 second. The gun was legal, according. So this is actually the 4th heinous lie about Kyle Rittenhouse. It was the gun was illegal. Wrong. Under Wisconsin law, he was entitled to possess the AR-15 as a 17-year-old. The judge dismissed the gun charge, which the prosecution should have never brought.
That's true because, well, I don't know about the state, Wisconsin, but from what I remember, gun laws, I don't think if you're under 21, you're not supposed to have a pistol, but you can have a rifle. So, I mean, that covers it. So
we've hit number one. Number one was that he killed 2 black BLM protesters. They were white. And a question that I never really dug for answers was, I'm curious if the 3 people that were shot were all a part of the community. And I wonder if that was ever talked about how he left his community to go protect another. I wonder if it's ever talked about the times
where they came from.
Rioters are brought in places to totally wreck shop on places. So that's something that is always
well, with one of them, and I could be wrong on this, but I think I remember hearing that the person was let out of prison earlier that day. I think that was the one accused of rape of a child.
Hospital. It was a hospital.
Oh, the hospital. Okay. It
was a hospital. Yeah.
Then never mind.
He had tried to kill himself the day before. That he was looking for suicide by cop. He got suicide by Kyle. That's what happens. That's what happened.
Well, I mean, that's what you're assuming, but it sounds like a pretty safe assumption. Like he wasn't really happy in life, which sounded like it. Like that sucks. And like again, he didn't deserve to die for that. However, when you attack someone, you're kind of allowing yourself to be put in danger. So,
yeah. And the cameraman, like I said, just check out the chat. Really, really doing all our due diligence for us.
I know. Thanks,
brings up all the information about the gun. The barrel was within reason. All of it was good, and the judge threw it out.
24 inches.
So number 3 was that he took an AR-15 across state lines, which we've since debunked through the trial. The gun was illegal. We debunked that as well. Rittenhouse's mother drove him across state lines to the riot, which was debunked because she did not get up that day at all. She got it much later that day.
It's kind of that's kind of a sick one too. Like just to assume and make up that lie, even if there's no evidence that points at like even the mother wants to kill black people. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of I get it. I get it. You think he's evil and all that, but that's to me especially kind of like unless you have evidence of it, that's kind of really slanderous to say against someone. Like
Yeah,
even the mom wanted him to go over and shoot people. It's like that's pretty
calling somebody a racist is it's the most widely accepted form of
criticism,
slander, and libel that has ever
well,
been
I mean,
around.
that goes even deeper than racism. That goes in the mother wanted to have her 17-year-old walk around with a gun. So hopefully he would shoot someone, one of these darn protesters protesting for Black Lives Matter. You know what I mean? Like the mother would support this type of stuff. Like it's pretty like, unless you have evidence of that. Like I said and did some stupid stuff as a teenager. And someone accusing my mom of being responsible for everything I said and did as a teenager, which I'm glad there's no evidence of, is kind of messed up. Like she's absolutely the one that would not be supporting me doing stupid stuff. So I don't know.
We're so smart that we're now just like putting all our stuff on the internet now that we're full blown adults and not children. Oh my goodness. Like I'm sure if you dig through my Facebook, like I have ridiculous things that need to come down.
Yeah.
But I'm also not that same person. I'm not even the same person I was 7 months ago, let alone 7 years ago, 10 years ago, 11 years
The only
ago.
thing black in the whole case was the AR.
Yeah, I was gonna say, shout out to the cameraman, not only doing fact checking for us, but bringing the funny. The only
but you know what? That's also another thing.
Like the AR.
That's also another thing interesting is like the media would only like the media almost wishes those people were black so they can make a better case of it. You know what I mean? Like it's like they wish that kid killed the black person because then that's why
so many news organizations said that he killed black people,
because that sells. Like that makes me pissed off. Like, dude, are you serious? You just go in there and just kill black. Like that's racist. We don't support that crap. Like fry that kid. But that's deliberately slandering, and I hope he sues the medias, and I hope that this helps to calm down media from just reporting BS. Like,
well, I mean, if it didn't happen with the Sandman case, it's not going to happen with this either. I'm referring the Nick Sandman case, the Covington kids from Covington, Kentucky, who were at the Capitol. 2 years ago, wearing MAGA hats. The Indian guy goes up, starts banging a drum in his face. Everybody was saying that. Everybody was saying that they were there antagonizing him the whole time, and it turns out that like some other group of activists, the Black Israelites, I believe, were actually antagonizing the kids, and then the Indian vet just went up to him and started banging the drum, and the kid was, which, I mean, good on the kid for just standing there and smiling like a with a smirk, because I couldn't do that.
Yeah, I couldn't do that. And like, you know what's funny about that case? I remember seeing it, and of course, whatever, I'm gonna have a skew or whatever from that case, but I saw it as like this Native American guy, this Native Indigenous guy, walked straight through a group of white teenage kids from some Christian school, banging in his drum, trying to make his point, and just going straight through. And he tried to claim, I remember this case actually a little bit, tried to claim like he was trying to break the tension. Breaking the tension by going straight into a crowd of people that you think are being very contentious with a drum, trying to make a point, doesn't make sense to me as a
bang it in their face. But
the response of just standing there and not actively fighting, but just standing there and just smirking. Sure, the kid looked like a little punk kid, and he did look like he needed to be smacked. Personal opinion. Some people look like they need to be smacked. The kid did. I remember that.
Some people just have punchable faces, and
he did.
Like he had a punchable face. He did. Like I'm not going to stand
up here and say native guy for not punching him, because I would have been urged to punch him even if I wasn't upset. I'm like, not like the kid needs to be slapped. But
like, props to both of them. Props to the Native American guy. Indigenous
person. He didn't escalate.
He didn't hit the kid, and then the kid didn't hit him back, because as a youth, I would not have such restraint. Guaranteed.
I would have been a smart, belligerent kid, but I guess kids are a little bit smarter today because they do realize that more stuff's recorded. So thank goodness. But I would have been like trying to act like a tough guy in front of my friends. I'm a teenage boy. That's what you do, because you're always trying to jockey for position, and all he did was stand there. And like, what's funny about that whole incident and that whole situation is, why do we care? Like, why did the media care about it? So some kid stood in a thing, a native guy banged a drum, and they confronted each other. Why was that an issue?
That's a stupid question, and you know it. You know why everybody cared.
I know
why everybody cared, and we're not even going to mention it. We're not even going to mention it because it's a waste of time, and
I know
it's stupid. Stuff. But the moral of the story is
it's an anger box. People throw in the anger in whatever's that box, and media throws it in there, and people get mad about it. And that's what we do. We don't care about stuff that actually matters. We care about stuff that they throw in the box. And I remember having a friend that he brought up what was the CIA test where they tried to do mind control over what they could agitate people to do. And like there's like a conspiracy theory that's what media now emulates, is it tries to properly frame issues to get people agitated. And so if they can train us to, when they frame an issue right, then it doesn't matter what the issue is. They can just plug in this topic or that person to be mad at, and they can just replace it, copy paste, boom, this is what you're mad at. This is what you're mad at, because we're already kind of conditioned to already get upset, get on our lines, and growl at the other side. Like, that's what it set up. What do we got here?
So I'm the cameraman said, side note, in the world of psychology, when you are moved to act physically like that, it's because your ego can no longer validate reasonable arguments. So violence is the next tool to use. And I said, oh yeah, I was a damn caveman as a kid, hands down. So I am not.
Yeah, no, I was too. I admire kids that are able not to react the way I would react as a teenage boy. So good on the kids for not. I mean, Kyle Rittenhouse had to do what he had to do, but yeah, that other kid.
Yeah, I mean, violence was brought on him, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah. So we've gone through the first 6 lies. Number 7, Rittenhouse is a white supremacist who was put out by the president of the United States of America, Joe Biden said that. Before he was the president, he was then candidate Joe Biden. But this ages really badly, because you now have an example of the president labeling somebody the worst thing that you can label somebody in our society.
Is it the worst thing anymore? Like, does anyone believe that when someone gets called a white supremacist that there are a white supremacist? Because I don't even know what white supremacy is anymore. Because apparently black people can be white supremacists too now. Like,
Larry Elder. Larry Elder was the white face, the black face
of white supremacy, which I get. He was a polarizing character because he's super conservative, has some crazy views. I get that. For a lot of people, it's really tough for them to do. But to say something like that and to back out stuff, like, it means nothing now. Like, if someone called me a white supremacist, first off, there would be a couple of people that would just believe it just because I got called it. And there would be anyone else that knows me, I would hope, would know enough that that's just the term that gets thrown out now.
Yeah.
Physically assaulted someone, the result is because you're wrong. Feel like you physically assaulted someone.
Okay, and then we got it says when White House press secretary Jen Psaki was asked to explain why recently she slyly slimed Rittenhouse again without naming him as a vigilante. So that's a good precedent to set by the president. But don't get me wrong, we had a litmus test of president saying, or not a litmus test, a litany of presidents saying things that they shouldn't say.
I think we're all used to presidents that speak out their butt a little too much, no matter what side they're on. Like, the right can't really make fun of Biden for saying ridiculous things, just like the left can't just be mad at Trump for saying ridiculous things. So I think whether what side of your political party is, I think you have to have a little bit of a grace for people saying ridiculous things. We do it. But especially, so going back to this white supremacy thing with Kyle Rittenhouse, one thing that I found fascinating is, they went through this kid's political history like crazy, or not political history, but social media history, background, anything like crazy. Where's that being said, I remember the one thing he had was his username was 4 Doors More Horrors on TikTok, which is a funny teenage thing to do. Like, silly, a punk, inappropriate thing for a teenage kid to say.
4 door more whores.
4 Doors More Horrors. I forget what it was. I saw a bunch of memes going out like legend screen name or whatever. But that being this on the side point, I'm pretty sure they went through his stuff with a fine tooth comb, and they did not find content that they could use to back up the fact that he is a white supremacist. You know what I mean?
Well, no, they did, which it mentions right here. In one story, The Intercept used the term white supremacist 16 times. The accusation has become holy writ, but there's zero evidence. The FBI scoured Kyle's phone, found nothing about white supremacy or militias, the court heard. All they saw were pro-police, Blue Lives Matter posts from a kid who had been a police and fire department cadet, wanted to be a police officer or paramedic once sat near the front of a Trump rally. That was
well, there he goes, right there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
there you go. Well, never mind. I take back everything I said. That's all the evidence you need. So, and that just goes back to show me, it's like, if you were to go back into if I had social media as I was growing up, I am sure, I'm 100% positive I would have said racist, stupid, ignorant things, mainly because I'm an inexperienced, uneducated, like I haven't had many life experience, not many interactions with people of other races. I'm going to say stupid, ignorant things. And they couldn't find much crap on this kid. Like, to me, that's fascinating to me. And maybe he's just, maybe people are just more educated in social media than I was growing up. But I was a very dumb kid that said stupid, inappropriate things growing up. And I'll openly admit that. And if there's evidence, you'll probably be able to find enough information to cancel me 3 times over. Like, I've done and said stupid things. So the white supremacist thing, like, it's getting old, and we need to stop throwing it around like because it means nothing now. It's absolutely nothing.
Yeah. It then got fueled by the fire of the, which also brought up by the cameraman, again, doing our job for us. We appreciate you, the cameraman. I don't even know who you are, but
yeah, the cameraman's awesome.
He's being the real guy today.
He's like our
he's flashed white power signs, which I think this is what they're
saying. When did that start?
Like,
when did this start? I've never heard that until like a news report that this means white power. Like, this was all okay for me. This was.
Let me give you the quick etymology of this. So I want to say it was back in 2016, something like that. There was I was on 4chan that one of the groups had just said that they were going to just, take pictures of people doing this sign, and of which I'm now, people are now saying,
right now screenshots, and they're like,
Justin is definitely a white supremacist. Lovely. These posters on 4chan wanted to take all of these photos of people doing the OK sign and be like, let's say that it's the new sign for white power. So you have a W and then an upside down P. So,
oh wait, no, I remember. Wasn't it during that Navy Army game where the cadets were playing the ball game?
They used that image. Like, that was one of the images that they used.
And I remember,
basically,
so ridiculous, because anyone that's been in the military, you're always playing this game. Like, you're always playing the ball game. Like, it's like, I got you. Look,
I'm such an idiot. I'm over here like trying to go through my brain to find when this all happened, and it was in 2017. It says it right here.
Yeah. Okay. right in front.
Like, literally, it's been on the screen this whole damn time.
The highest level of journalism on this podcast today, folks. Just the highest level. No, actually, you've been really prepared. I'm kind of like unprepared for this, but yeah, it was during that game, and I remember thinking that was so ridiculous that they even case. But then once you say a lie, people will catch on. Maybe there is a group that uses that as white power, which
maybe I'm sure it's been adopted since. I'm sure they're like, I know that like the Proud Boys have done it, but I don't 100% consider the Proud Boys. Like, I'm sure there are racist.
I don't know enough about the Proud Boys, but isn't the leader
a racist organization though? That's what.
Like, and
their leader is a black Cuban, I believe.
Yeah, and that doesn't make it. That doesn't make it not racist just because the guy's black. But to me, I don't know enough about the Proud Boys. I thought it was an internet meme thing that got taken. It went kind of silly and crazy, whatever. But yeah, so this will always be okay to me. And if someone gets offended by me, like, hey, okay, like that, and thinking I'm saying, hey, okay, white power, I apologize if that's what you interpret. My culture tells me this is okay. It's not white power. I'm sorry. When I was in the Philippines, people would count down, and they would count all the way down to 1. I didn't get offended when they were counting and they did this to me into my face, because it didn't mean that to them. So if someone got offended by that, I would apologize automatically, because I'm like, no, that's not what I meant to do. But today, in today's world, we don't assume that. So anyways.
Yeah. Red 5 Golf coming in with Antifa and BLM are terrorist organizations. I think that on an organizational level, I do have to agree with you. Red 5 Golf. There you go. Ira rocking the U of A shirt. Things are about to get interesting.
And the sweater, right? I'm like all U of A today. Like, geez. All right. So BLM being a terrorist organization. I think saying like I can back up with that just based off of the results of what happened with BLM. But I think doing that is just feeds into the division that people want to hear anyways. I think more amazing is the fact that conservatives and supporters of BLM are fighting the same corruption across the plane. Like there's the same corruption. I think maybe some are starting to realize like, hey, wait a second. We're getting upset because we're not being listened to. They're getting upset because they're not being listened to. We're both getting played in elections. Like, I feel like if with the right leadership stepping in, there could be some type of way where we see eye to eye, like, hey, your enemy's also my enemy. And we're not really fighting. We just disagree on process, maybe. Well, there's definitely room there, but media putting out stuff like BLM is terrorist organization. When you say that, if I were a BLM supporter, like if I was black and had these background, I see that and I say, oh, you're a racist white person, not even knowing who that person is. Mm-hmm. So we have to be a little bit careful if you're trying to work together to try to actually solve the problem. You have to be a little bit careful of the emotional attachment people have to organizations that they're a part of, left, Republican, Democrat, BLM, conservative, all that stuff. I think the language we're using, we're being groomed to use to fight each other. That's what I'm noticing. Like it all goes down to that anger box that people can throw stuff into. When I'm on the right, the thing that's in the anger box is stuff like BLM, Antifa, socialism. That type of stuff is my anger box. On the other side, the left, it's Trump supporters, white supremacy, that the invisible monster that can be shaped and morph into black people and white people and everything. It can be thrown in that box, and then we get angry. We don't realize that the people that associate themselves with that aren't our actual enemies. They just have a different view on that topic than we do. And so
it goes back to what we were saying before. Like it really is based on the framing of what they're shown. What they're told, like what the people around them say, what the media is telling them, like what they're taking in. Like every single person is just a collection of other people's thoughts. Like that's the way it is. And so if you are surrounded by people who see the world one way, you are guaranteed to see it only that way, which goes back to what we were talking about our growing up. Is we grew up in a very sheltered place where we probably did act in a way that could be considered racist, but we both grew up. You went into the military. I traveled across the country and worked with different individuals, got to sit in different people's homes and like see how they live. And it really changed my entire life. And I think that just like I needed to get out and I needed to experience other things to understand where other people were coming from, I really think that everybody needs to do that.
Because, Jordan Peterson, I'm a big fan of Jordan Peterson, but he talks about the need to go out on the adventure.
Clean your bedroom.
And clean your bedroom. But he talks about the need, especially for boys, and I think also women need it too, is that experience just to get away and get into it, go on an adventure. He talks about it in his Bible series, and I know not everyone's in that stuff, but I find it interesting for the story aspect and the importance for your own development is that idea of being able to go out and to put yourself in danger, uncomfortableness, expose yourself to that stuff, because it really does change your aspect and way you feel in the world, and it helps you grow. And the same thing happened, I think, with you and me. Is like we got out of our little bubble. We got into really uncomfortable situations for us because it challenged our worldview that we were taught from going, younger than I can remember, and probably younger than my parents can remember what they were taught. And it caused us to like, okay, we'll take another view of this and all that. And yeah, it's just, I think that's a really important thing. And I think it allows us to like kind of grasp at, hey, if we were born in their same exact situation with their same exact experience, we'd be the exact same in the exact same situation.
Yeah.
So how to deal with life from that point on is important.
Yeah, it really is, because you only know what you know. You like there's something that I've been hearing a lot lately, and I've heard it in a couple of different places. But the worst thing to happen to you is the worst thing to ever happen to you.
Yeah.
And it can be as simple as I got rear-ended the other day, and that is the worst thing that ever happened to me. And it could be my dad died when I was 2. That could be the worst thing that ever happened to me. The worst thing that happened to you, no matter what it is and how impactful it is to you, is the worst thing that ever happened to you. And I think that needs to be understood like on a grand scale, because it really does help you understand that everybody really is just a something of their circumstances.
The victim of their circumstances.
Victim of their circumstances.
Yeah.
I don't know if I was going victim, but
no results. We're basically the same software, the same machine, generally put in different situations.
Yeah.
Like we have some different personality traits, but how much is that nature versus nurture and all that type of stuff? But yeah, like that aspect, the most important thing is to try to have, like when you go through something, is to try to have empathy that, okay, I went through this and this was hard for me. Someone else could go through something else. That understanding that that's the worst for me. Someone else's worse could be technically like worse. Like it could sound like rape or whatever it is that you went through. But me going through, because I had a fender bender and it was the worst day of my life and it was so hard, that doesn't mean it wasn't hard. Like I should take that and put it in perspective for me. And then I should also, like, just because someone had it worse, they should have a little empathy for me. I should have an empathy for them, because we can only go on.
Victim of our environment. That's what I was looking for.
That's it. Yes. Who said that? Was that you, or did you figure that out?
No, Robert Marshall in the chat. And we're going to get back to the chat right now, because the cameraman brought up some good stuff. Shout out to Robert Marshall. Robert Marshall, good friend of mine back in high school.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Oh, shoot. I probably shouldn't have said his last name. It's just Robert M.
Rob M.
Luckily, there's a lot
of editing software. Don't worry. We'll take care of that, Rob. Don't worry. No one's going to know.
We're not going to.
Oh, we're live. Never mind. You're screwed. You're stuck.
The cameraman brought up some good stuff that I want to talk about real fast. He says, chew on this brainworm. The reason behind the white supremacy, WSUP is just white supremacy. White supremacy claim is because the man gave the sign okay for American Sign Language, which I'm not 100% sure if this is actual American Sign Language. I know that it's used as layman sign language. It might not be a part of ASL. I'll go ahead and tentatively believe you. This is just another case of left ignorance about languages they can't speak.
Okay, hold on. So this is okay. Wait, being racist act words cannot be racist. Okay,
I'm trying to read this to everybody.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Sorry. Being racist is an act. Words cannot be racist. This is covered in the freedom of speech. Hate speech is still speech and therefore covered. And we go down a couple more. This is a fun experiment that he brings up. I think I can prove this matter of fact, actually. I can insert the appearance of racism simply by the facts of how something naturally operates. Think about the game of Hangman. It's written on a white piece of paper, and in the end, a black man is hanging. Literally, oh wait, where'd it go?
I don't mean to laugh at this.
Nothing there.
That's funny.
Literally nothing there before, but now it has gears in your head turning.
Yeah.
We learn this technique in PsyOps as how to manipulate people, mental tracks in real time.
I'm interested now in cameraman's background, so maybe I'll talk to him offline or something like that in the PsyOps, because that's interesting. So another thing that's kind of bothered me, and probably has bothered a lot of people, is this type of way of thinking of, like, they frame it, right? And then also this changing of definitions of words for, like, for example, the actual changing of the definition of racism, how it's like they change definitions, and that's I think more so than anything, and this is kind of conspiratorial, whatever, it's really to separate us into the people that will fall in line and the people that won't, and like the people that are going to be the problems for changes that they want to implement. And this is like the government, people in control. They do these changes and they see who kind of reacts to it. This is kind of like my theory. Who's reacting to it? Who's following line with it? And who's actively fighting that type of stuff? And social media allows us to easily track who's following line with it and who's actively fighting it. So like to me, it kind of identifies who's your followers, who's your problems. And so that's one thing that bothers me about the whole the framing and then easily like manipulating people and all that type of stuff. So that's one thing. But that's an interesting like aspect of like that example of they framed it. It's a white piece of paper, black person hanging, and it's like, oh wow, that does sound really bad. And now all of a sudden I'm thinking like, and it goes to like critical race stuff. Like if you've ever watched that Netflix series Explained, um, it's all it's all or all critical race theory about how everything in history is nothing but racist, and that's kind of the same. They just frame it, and if you frame anything, you can frame anything to sound horrible.
Yeah, the framing is the key here, and that's I don't know how many times I've said framing in this of not being mad at. I'm not mad at the individuals who are on Twitter saying that this kid should have gone away for life, that are truly uninformed. Like I'm not mad at ignorance. I do get a little annoyed when people speak as though they're not, but if they're going based off of the information that was given to them by their news source, can I really hold that against them personally? I mean, granted, I can attack them for not having critical thinking skills and really going against what's being told to them, but that doesn't matter at the end of the day.
No, and I've gotten to a point now where I think I kind of align with you there. Like I'm not, I don't get upset now when people have any different opinions, which is silly to get upset anyways, that I ever did get upset by it. One thing I really just want to know is like you're kind of saying, it's like, what's their rationale to get to that point? Like, I'm cool if you can, like, if you're talking to me and you have a clear rationale to agree 100% opposite of me, I actually prefer that. But if you're just like the bullet point stuff, I think that's when you should probably not speak much. If you're talking bullet points like it's a fact and not like, hey, this is what I've heard. Like it kind of goes to show you like, okay, you're not really thinking for yourself. You're just repeating stuff and it makes you angry and you're just happy to be on your side of the argument.
Which ironically enough, I'm going to move back on to going through my points.
Okay.
But before I do that, shout out to Walter. Thank you for this. He brings up a question. Why did they say Kyle was racist when he defended himself from white people? We actually talked about that earlier. 100% he only fired on people that were attacking him. We definitely do not think that, based off of the actions, we cannot say that he's racist by any means whatsoever. Thanks for the comment, Walter Dalton. Appreciate it. But moving back to the lies, we're back to, so we just covered the white power sign. He wore, number 9 is he wore surgical gloves to cover his foot fingerprints. This is very, very, very easily debunked. He was out there with a medic bag. He was there trying to help protesters. Go ahead, Ira.
Also, during COVID, I don't know, just throwing that out there. Like
he wasn't wearing a mask. Like he wasn't worried about COVID. I don't think that has any bearing.
No, what I'm saying is like, first off, he's doing medical stuff, but this is just me personally. I don't know why he wore the gloves. I think it's for the medical reasons, but also what's funny about the mask thing is people touch their face more with masks, so you're actually increasing your chance. The best way to do it is not touch your face. That's the best way to not transmit diseases. That's just what I know as a chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear defense specialist. When you put on a mask and you don't put it on and take it off properly every time, you increase it. But if you wear gloves and not touch your face, you're limiting yourself a lot better than you would a mask. But that's just beside the point. But yeah, I heard he was doing medical, and I saw the interview before the event happened when they were interviewing the kid, and he was saying, yeah, I'm here offering any medical assistance, plus we're helping protect property. That's what he said in the news. That's what I would assume he was actually doing, because when people say stuff, I take them at their value unless it's pretty obvious that they're not. But that's why I didn't fall into like, oh, he went there maliciously with gloves on. Why did he talk to the news then? Why did he talk to a reporter? Yeah. I don't know. It seems weird.
The cameraman coming in with something that I don't know. CBRN.
Oh, good. Okay. Yep. No, that's chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear defense. I'm guessing I was in the Marine Corps, so I don't know what the cameraman was in.
And then he says, how was old Lost in the Woods for you?
Horrible experience. I was there the winter of, 2011. I think that was the day. It was a horrible experience. I hated Fort Leonard Wood. It was a horrible place to be. I hated it. It was horrible. I never went to any of the off-limit establishments. Like, what was it? Was it Daisy's massage parlor that I heard a lot of?
Rob M in the chat. He was part of a EMT cadet program wearing gloves, or BSI is rule number 1. I'm not sure what BSI is.
I don't know what BSI is. I'm saying some type of thing, but yeah. So if he has training, that's what I would assume.
And there was. I mean, he had basic first aid training. Like, he was not a 100% EMT trained. He was 17. Like, I think he was 17. He was maybe in like a CNA class. I know that you were in CNA class in high school. I was kicked out of CNA class my first day in high school. Actually, a fun story. Me and Rob M were in the CNA class together, and he had made a joke to me about something. I can't remember to save my life. But I laughed about it. I laughed about it, and I was strongly encouraged to leave. And so I was like, fine, I want my mornings back to me anyways. And so I quit the class and did not become a CNA. But there is video of him helping at the protest and taking care of protesters, like people who are not wearing weapons and things like that. Like, he was doing he was trying to help people, which is really cool.
I think the disconnect between the people that kind of see
there we go. BSI is body substance insulation. There we go. We know now.
Okay, I think we need another definition to understand what that actually means, but whatever.
No, it's to separate. It's to separate you from somebody that you're working on.
Yeah. What's kind of like another kind of evidence of it is like small world. Yeah, right. It's kind of interesting is like, all you have to do is see the videos of the event yourself, and you kind of have a pretty good idea of what took place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and that's what's, I think, the biggest disconnect between people that are like I think me and you. Like, I'll admit, I'm definitely leaning more right than I did a year and a half ago on a lot of things, because I don't trust the liberal media left, which I consider myself a pretty classical liberal on a lot of social issues and all that. Yeah. So like, it's easy for me to look at it and be like, that evidence backs up, I just see the evidence, and then it also kind of backs up my worldview. And then other people will see what the news clips are, and I don't understand their thought process because I'm not in their head, but it seems to me that they're just viewing that anger box. Like, that's how they're looking at it. Whereas I feel like there's more so now people pulling away from that mainstream media, kind of finding their own anger box to find out what makes them angry themselves, kind of like their own independent way to get upset. And so we're starting to see that I think in this case is pretty evident. Like, you just watch the video, and what's your true gut reaction? Take all the politics out of it. When you see that event unfold, to me, it's kind of like, all right, the kid was trying to get away. They were trying to chase him. Whatever reason, let's say he stole something of theirs. They were trying to chase him. They were beating him up to do it. Should they have jumped up on a kid with a rifle? Should they try to hit him with the head with a skateboard with a kid with a rifle? It's kind of, the evidence is pretty upfront. Like, it's hard to understand.
It really, really, really was.
And so I guess that's the biggest, the hardest part. It's not so much the outcome of the case, but really the reaction to specific people in the case. Like, some people, they idolize the kid, which there's certain things that I admire about the kid. The fact that, he was trying to be good, which is the right's, I think the right's Achilles heel is trying to be the hero, the classic American hero coming in there and saving people, whether it's military or whatever. And then we get played by our politicians to do stuff that we thought were noble. And that turned out to be, we're in Afghanistan supporting Halliburton and then walking out, leaving people to die and to starve and leaving the Taliban in control, because we were going in there with a noble thought in our head, but we were being led by people without morals. And when you don't have morals, your replacement is money and power. So,
yeah. And we are reaching the end of the stuff. The last thing that I want to talk about was Judge Bruce Schroeder is a Trumpy, racist, biased towards the defense judge.
Well, he did have the American thing as a ringtone. So
yeah, he did have, was it God Bless America or no,
like
Proud to be American.
Yeah. So right there, to me, that
which can we real fast, like, don't get me wrong, I'm all like, if you love America, like that's cool. But is there a cornier song?
Like, here's another thing I've been thinking about lately about how I view my patriotism and the way I feel. Now, my patriotism has shifted over the last few years. Like, I'm now more patriotic towards my community more than the federal government, because I don't feel like that. I feel like we've gotten too far away where our federal level is just does not represent our state level. Personally, I'm probably going to get canceled or just silenced for that. But like, let's also take a look at, and this might make some people hate me, the Pledge of Allegiance. To me, in my opinion, the Pledge of Allegiance is kind of un-American to me. I mean, you are pledging allegiance to a government, not to the Constitution as much, but to the government and all that, along as it stands, whatever. But it's kind of like a weird kind of like higher up leadership. Now I pledge my allegiance to this stuff and all that. It doesn't always follow the values of the American people, the government. So like, I think we should like really revamp how we think about things like that. I can kind of understand now, and I think, of course, when the left touches anything, it really screws it up. But the protests of kneeling during the national anthem now, I have a better understanding, and I think I have a better respect towards it. I still don't like it. I don't think it was done in the malicious way that some Republicans feel it was. And I know I'm kind of getting off sidetrack, but I don't think it was as malicious as it was when it first got started. But I think we need to revamp of what we look at, both sides, what we look at as being an actual patriot and what we look at as being actually like proper ways to address grievances. And I forget where I was going with this, but and the actual, like, the idea of like, a Trumpy supporter, whatever type of stuff. That whole idea is like, oh, he had that on his phone and he was mean towards the prosecution. Well, first off, the DA, I'm sorry, he looked like he was just trying to get like a cable TV show, the way he was acting in the case in general. Like, the guy is he's a character.
Yeah.
Not a real lawyer.
Talk about showing no trigger discipline.
Oh yeah, that whole thing.
Literally puts his finger on the trigger to the jury. This is literally weeks after a major Hollywood guy kills somebody on a damn freaking movie set. Like, are you fucking that dumb?
These are the liberals that are telling us how dangerous guns are. Like, and I'm sorry, liberals. I know there's some of you that like guns too, because I consider myself somewhat liberal and I like guns too, and I think they're important. But like, it's the disconnect. Like, they're the ones that are telling us what's good and bad. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're the educated ones that don't know what they're doing, telling us what to do, and telling us to just trust certain things about whatever there is they're telling us. You know what I mean? Like, that's why people don't trust it, because they don't know what they're talking about. And not only that, this case, with the evidence they had and the evidence the FBI had, the DA should have looked at that and said, this can't go to trial. This is thrown out. This is clearly a thing. But I believe the DA is trying to make a career move, and he's trying to get on CNN as a legal correspondent and have that be his moneymaker for the rest of his life, kind of a thing.
Yeah. And
it's a career
move with that. Like, even the people on the left say that he was intentionally trying to lose it. Like, neither here.
I just think he sucked. I think there would have been a much better way to try to like make a case there than the way he tried to do it.
We got one from Robert M. Ira. In a perfect world, you would be right, but if you clearly oppose the foundations of the nation as the left does, then it tends to be more malicious when they kneel. Remember, they aren't anti-West, or they are anti-West.
Yeah. So I would agree with that. Is when we talk like kind of the same thing as BLM as a terrorist organization. They are founded by Marxists. Marxists is always about overthrowing the government and then having a utopian future. They don't tell you how they get there. Revolution, overthrow, utopia. That's the Marxism playbook, but they don't tell you how that revolution turns into a utopia. Because guess what? America's really the only time when we had a revolution, it turned out to be something better than what we had before. Like, not many times in history did that actually work. So like, that's the one thing I would agree with you is, if the intention of the individual is to go against the founding values of the government, which is all men are created equal, freedom for all, everyone deserves a voice, that, democracy, all that type of stuff. Like, then yes, I would agree with you that, yeah, if the intention is to, no, this thing is absolutely horrible, we need to burn the whole thing down and restart, that's where I'd be like, nope, I can't be with you. But yeah.
But basically, all of this came from the ringtone, the fact that he made a Chinese food joke about the supply chain crisis. Like,
that was a funny joke too. Like, I'm sorry, but the act that is supposedly racist
in that joke was that it was Chinese food. Like,
it was
that's
Chinese
literally
food,
the only
and
thing.
it was taking a long time, and the supply chain. How are you associating the supply chain and Chinese food, and then somehow that's racist? Like, that is example of the hangman game being racist. Is like Chinese. He said Chinese. He said supply chain. Racist.
Naturally. It's the only thing we can reasonably jump to. It's the only possible thing.
Well, I want to get him on cultural appropriations, because why was a white man eating Chinese food? Exactly. That's not his culture food. He needs to eat bland, non-seasoned, like lamb and stuff like that. Only stuff from his actual region, but that's besides the point.
I mean, but that was really everything that I kind of wanted to cover. I really wanted to go over those 10 lies that I just see perpetuated not to ad nauseum when it comes to Twitter and Facebook and all these social media platforms, to where it was hurting my head seeing the same arguments said over and over again. I was like, well, the only way to combat bad speech is with better speech. And so I figured me and you need to hop on a call and do the damn thing. And so that's what we did. We are going to dig in a little deeper. Like I said before, we're going to go ahead and pretty soon in the coming weeks, we'll do a COVID episode, which is all going to be about my obese trip through COVID.
Yeah.
The changes that came from it, which is, it's definitely going to be, it's like, if you're going to show up to it thinking it's going to be a super political podcast, it's really not. There'll probably be about 25% political discussion, 25% how I felt during the whole thing. And then lastly, it'll be about what has changed since I got COVID, changed in my life as a whole, which Ira knows, and Rob M in the chat knows. I've been making some big changes in my life in the last few months. So that's going to be a really fun one. Before we go, I just want to share my screen one more time and share the sources that I was using for this real fast. Let's go right here. So like I was saying before, this is TK News by Matt Taibbi through taibbi.substack.com. I really advise reading this article or listening to it or watching the video on YouTube. The article that we went through was from the New York Post, 10 heinous lies about Kyle Rittenhouse debunked by Miranda Devine. I talked about Glenn Greenwald at the beginning, and then I also wanted to link out to his Rittenhouse verdict video that he put out as well. It's about a 45-minute video that just does a real good deep dive, kind of explaining how we got at the end here. And then one thing that I didn't talk about on here, but I did want to bring up, was Dave Smith's video on his YouTube channel, Dave Smith. Dave Smith is a libertarian guy who is a comedian. He's on YouTube. He has a podcast, Part of the Problem. I really advise people go and listen to that. A lot of good stuff, but he has a very nuanced reaction to the verdict that I think people should go check out. And all of these will be in the description after this is over. It's not there yet because I kind of got all these sources after I started streaming. And let me go through the comments one last time, make sure I didn't miss anything. So the cameraman did 45 weeks straight at LW, BCT, then AIT, MP, CID, and SAP before he was out of there. He was the longest and most expensive trainee on record for LW.
Yeah, Fort Leonard Wood. I'm sorry, cameraman. I don't know. Like, it's kind of, you should write a book on how you overcame suicidal tendencies from being in Fort Leonard Wood, because that could probably help the Army and the Marine Corps. So if you want to serve your country, figure out how you did it and then share it with the military, because that place is miserable.
Back to Walker Dalton. We got my question is, why is the lawyer holding it aiming at people? We had that same question. That is a very, very real question that should be answered, because that was ridiculous.
Another thing, like, I know we're coming to an end, but another thing that the lawyer did that I thought was just, he should lose his license for even implying this, is implying that using your Fifth Amendment right is guilt. Like, the fact that he brought that up as a lawyer, it should be, he should lose his license, because even hinting that that could be a thing taints juries' opinions, taints a lot of people's opinions about the actual Fifth Amendment and what it's actually there for. It's not to admit or not, it's to not have lawyers like that piece of crap use everything they can, because you're in a situation where you're scared and traumatized and everything like that, where a cop and a lawyer, all they're trying to do is make the case. They don't give a crap about the truth. They, like, for example, that lawyer, it just showed he didn't care about the facts of the case. Otherwise, he'd never brought it to, to the court. And that's a problem with our criminal justice system, a big problem. And maybe we could have a whole episode of that. I have a couple friends that might be a kind of fun guest to have on here about it.
Oh, hell yeah.
Is that aspect of the win-lose and not for the truth. That's a huge problem. And that's why I think that lawyer should actually be, like, punished for what he implied in that. But that's just besides the point. Going back to, like, the actual verdict, when they read the verdict, I like I said, I wasn't following the case too much. I was kind of looking at highlights. My source is Facebook, TikTok, some independent news sources that I listen to, but not organized in a professional way like you did.
Shout out to Breaking Points.
Yeah, Breaking Points. Hey, if
Chris
you're anyone that sees that, follow that. If that's your first independent news source, that's a good place to start. Like, start with Breaking Points and then go from there, because they really do a good job in keeping things kind of upfront, honest, and the reporting is good, and it's not a corporate-owned news source, which is just amazing. So, but when he read the verdict and seeing Kyle, like, I felt a little emotional from seeing that thing. Like, I think of all the other cases of people that have been accused of stuff that either they did do or they should be innocent, or even people that were accused and they were 100% innocent, because we have a problem with that in the U.S. criminal justice system. And, like, I don't know, that just thinking about that and how messed up the system is, and just seeing his emotional reaction kind of got me a little bit emotional. And like I said, I haven't been following the case super close. Only after I saw the verdict did I kind of do a little bit back research on it, reading up about it. So that was an interesting experience for me, just to see that and be like, good, finally.
Also, Cameron, Chinese is nationality, not a race. They are Asian. That is actually a good point.
Although it's hard to be considered a Chinese and be any other race but from that region, because China is actually one of the most racist countries when it comes to citizenship and how they gauge their citizens. But that's for another
Which topic. I'm pretty sure is what Ninja Medic was talking about when he said to Uyghurs. I'm not sure what he was talking about exactly. I know everything. I know what's going on with the Uyghurs. I know everything. I just don't know how it applies to what he was meaning. So sorry about that, Ninja Medic.
Maybe we'll do a little episode on China and get canceled completely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It'll get pulled down right away.
Come on, Xi Jinping, come get me. I'll be dead in a week.
The last thing we'll go over is that Fifth Amendment violation won the case, an appeal regardless of the verdict back from jury. 100%. I don't know if you know about that, but they tried to question him based off of why he was silent for so long after being arrested, and why he didn't have his story straight earlier, and the judge just laid in.
Yeah, and I was glad that judge did. Like,
yeah.
Here's a little thing I've learned in my limited experience interacting with law enforcement. You don't talk.
Yeah.
You don't say anything. That if anything, like, even if you're not accused of anything, you try to limit the amount of information you share with them, because they're just trying to look for
everything can be held against you. Everything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. So shut the fuck up.
Yeah, they're just doing a job. They want to find the easiest outcome possible. They don't even care if it's the right outcome. Just so it's like, hey, my numbers are great this month. I found the bad guy. That bad guy had 4 kids. He was an honest, hardworking dude, but whatever. I found him.
I want to do an episode where we kind of really talk about the media even more. I mean, I know we talked about it a lot during this, but there's even more in just this case that the media really messed up on. I mean, you look at the fact that MSNBC was kicked out of the courtroom because they had paid somebody to follow the jury. Like, that is a gross miscarriage of justice. Like,
I don't know if that should be kind of that should be a breaking of the law. Like, they should be like fined for that or something.
100% it should be. And thank you for watching, Walker. That's
appreciate it.
I think we just gotta cut it off.
Really
We gotta
awesome.
cut it off there because we could go on forever, and I have things to do, you have things to do. But everybody that hopped on, this is the very first time of us doing a live stream like this. I think we're going to do it more often. It's super fun.
I kind of like the engagement with the people. Yeah,
the engagement was awesome. The cameraman, the information is in the description.
Walker and
up on Instagram. If you want to talk about maybe coming on the show and having a talk with Ira about your guys' experiences.
When we just both bitch about Fort Leonard the whole time.
Like, I'll just go ahead and turn my mic and camera off. I'll let you guys go off.
We can have some military topics.
Yeah, I think that'd be a lot of fun. Thank you to the people who have subscribed to the channel. I know that Cameraman and Walker have both joined the channel, so thanks. Expect more of these. And expect it to only get better from here on out. This is the first time. We're gonna make it better. We're gonna make it fun. Maybe we'll do some cool stuff in the future. I don't know. This was a lot of fun. I really loved it. But I guess we'll go ahead and close it out and say, I love you, brother. Take it easy.
See you, bro.